Hello and welcome to the Game Developer Podcast. I'm your host, Senior Editor Bryant Francis. GDC Festival of Gaming has come and gone, but we at Game Developer had so many amazing stories come out of our time there that we'll be running them on the site for weeks to come. Obviously, a quick disclaimer, GDC Festival of Gaming and Game Developer are sibling organizations under Informa Festivals. At GDC, we got to record a few episodes of the Game Developer Podcast with some fabulous guests, including Alchemy Labs CEO Andrew Ike, Gearbox Software's Alexa Ray Correa, and NetEase's Yanchun Bien and Danny Koo. But first and foremost, we're bringing you our end of the week recap episode from the final day of the event. It was a perfect moment to catch up on everything we saw in the last week and give our listeners who couldn't make it to GDC this year a chance to see what we saw at the show. So today, our guests are none other than my coworkers, Alissa McAloon, Danielle Riendeau, and Chris Kerr. Please give them a warm welcome and enjoy our GDC wrap-up. Alissa, Danielle, Chris, welcome to the Game Developer Podcast, a thing that you guys are my coworkers about. So this really isn't that special. I could get you on any time. How's it going?
It's going very well. Last day of GDC.
Last day of GDC.
Friday.
For the people at home, we're all clearly hungover and wearing our sunglasses. Even though
great.
I don't think anyone's hungover.
I didn't think about the implications on that. I was in bed before midnight.
No, we weren't. We were
I
in
drank
bed about
tea
1
last night.
1 a.m.
It's great.
This is we are the hardcore partying people. I went to the Golden Gate tap room and hung out with some writers and had literally 2 drinks, and that was it. It was a nice evening.
I don't want to say the name where we're at on the podcast, but I don't want it to get even busier.
Yeah,
It's kind of where I'm at. So we were someplace real cool, and sorry you're not going to hear about it.
Oh, yeah. For Golden Gate Tap Room at GDC is like the home of where game writers visit and live. And it is a very cool space, very chill. They like do events there for, like evening, like gathering stuff. And otherwise it's just people, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to go back to the tap room is sort of like the deal. It's the final day of the GDC Festival of Gaming. And the usual disclaimer will be Game Developer and GDC Festival of Gaming are sibling organizations under Informa. It's been a busy week at the end of a crazy 10-month cycle as we've watched our peers reinvent the show. But let's focus on the main thing that our readers and listeners will care about, which is, what is the vibe around the show? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? How does the state of the industry feel? Danielle, I'm going to throw you on the spot. Give me your thoughts, your impressions.
Oh, my impressions on the vibes or the impressions on all the cool things I saw this week?
Both.
Because, okay. Well, on the vibes, I think the vibes are always going to be adjacent to what's going on in the world, which is chaotic and a lot and sometimes difficult to kind of deal with. But I have said I have had a really lovely show and I've actually really reconnected with some people. And that's actually been like tears at night kind of thing. Like, oh my God, it's beautiful. Games are beautiful. The people that make them are beautiful. So gotta say, that's been great.
Chris, talk to me.
Vibes are good. I think I was in the gardens the other day, went there for some lunch. Everyone seems to have a good time. Obviously, like Danielle said, there's a lot of turmoil, let's say, in the industry this year, as there was last year and the year before. But I think the people who can actually make it to GDC are having a good time, sharing lots of knowledge, playing some cool games. It feels like it's a place where people are always excited to get together, right, and just show each other some really cool things.
And now, boss, what do you think, Alyssa?
Boss. I think like the level of community, just given how like difficult things have been in the industry, like I want to say lately, but for a couple years now, I think seeing people come together on this level and like find their communities and have like for folks who aren't at GDC, there's a lot more like open spaces and like with chairs in them and places to just like have a spontaneous conversation. And it's this very like free flowing kind of flow to the overall event. And it's created a lot of like these moments where you can just when you run into somebody at GDC, now you have a place to sit and talk to them. And that's that's a game changer for me, honestly.
Yeah, not
Sorry
the game.
to use the branded words, game changing.
I was just said the game changes past, change the game. Okay, here's a question for all of you. Someone jump in and say it. The vibes in the industry are not good. We are running layoff stories literally every week, if not sometimes every day. Why do you think the mood here is decent to good, if even when that's happening?
Survival. Completely survival. Like, I think it's a necessity. And obviously this was brought up during the IGF Awards about we're going to go back to misery next week. We'll go back to bad news next week. But right now, in this moment, we can celebrate actually what has come out and people who are still striving and still doing amazing work that does come out, even if it's a painful time, even if it's a very difficult time. And obviously, I say that saying a lot of people could not make it here, obviously, and they were acknowledging that as well. But I do think it's a survival instinct. It's like, okay, there's something to celebrate here. We need to celebrate it. It feels like a genuine need and not just, a random event, a random occurrence.
Yeah, I think it's become a bit of a port in the storm. It's nice to actually get together and just realize that, hey, we're all in it together, essentially. I think, was it Rob Pardo, keynote speaker, said, studios should start valuing the teams more than they value the products.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, those are the people who are going to build you those award-winning titles like we celebrated at IGS, at the GDCAs. So yeah, I feel like the vibes are always good here because you actually get to see that people are surviving, maybe not thriving, but surviving, and that's important.
It's when things are difficult, you need the bright spots. And you need them more than ever when things are hard. And video games for a lot of us are that bright spot. Like when you're having that real shit year, it's sitting down with a game and you can kind of just turn your brain off and be in that world for a bit. It's something we all share in that way. So I think this is just another extension of that, right?
Yeah, I think I have a slightly spicy take, which is, the mood. One of the reasons that we're sort of seeing the mood that we are and the emotions that we are is that, the people we're meeting, the people we're running into are the people who, one, they are the labor, they have created the thing, and the thing exists not just because of the numbers and types of bodies on the project, but the people who sit in the roles that they do. And two, they are not the ones, weirdly, there are certain parties, shall we say, benefiting from the chaos, if you're benefiting because the stock went up because cut your profits for the quarter might go up. If they were here, if they were they're not here, but if they were sort of the driving mood, I think there would be something more dissonant going on if that was sort of the core community. Once when we're talking about another video game conference that I'm not going to put on blast here, but I was talking to a dev there who was furious, even though he was having a pretty good time with his peers, because he's like, yeah, I went go-karting at this conference, and right over there in the go-karts, giggling like a child, was a exec from a large company that had just laid off people that day.
Oh my God.
And he was like, I can't that almost feels like one of the problems with leadership in the game industry is the disconnect that sometimes people will put on themselves in order to succeed in the business is unpleasant, and it manifests, it manifests. But here, overwhelmingly, almost on sheer numbers alone, it's people who make, who want to make, who support, who, as we've said over and over again in meetings, do everything to make games wonderful,
I want to advocate for red shells and bananas for that dev, and proverbial ones, certainly, absolutely. But I'm gonna say a pro-union thing here of just wanting to have the proverbial red shells and bananas to fight against exploitation in the industry.
Why stop at red shells? We need blue.
Honestly, we need blue shells.
Literally,
The
blue is a rubber banding technique.
Yes.
Okay, let's dig into topics a little bit. Aside from the vibes and the survive and thrive or whatever from that we have sort of just run over, what else at the event, as you go between talks, as you have conversations with friends and colleagues and occasionally enemies, it's happened, what's the themes, what's the vibes, what would you specifically say is being talked about at GDC Festival of Gaming?
I want to shout out you specifically and your foresight
Not
on
allowed.
this. I've heard so many people talking about codev, and I'm not going to be able to speak about it as intelligently as those people or you have on this podcast in the past, but it's a lot of people looking at ways to, how can we have a more sustainable industry? How can we get out of this hire fire contract work cycle that we kind of get stuck into? And how can we have stability for the people who are doing the work? It's been a big topic.
It's not a new thing, but make games faster. I was at the talk about Peak, obviously, the OG Friend Swap game. And they said, they set out to make that game in a month. Eventually, it took them about 4.5 months. But the vast majority of the core experience was built in 28 days in Korea. And the big takeaway was look, set yourself a short time frame in which to build a game, you might not hit that target. You might not. You probably won't make a game in a month. But if you set yourself a shorter time frame, you are more likely to make a game in a month.
Add on to that is like I'll be at the podcast or like the common stage, like right outside of our little podcast booth here in like 45 minutes talking to somebody about that same thing, about making games quicker, smaller teams with a fully part-time team. So
yeah. So don't be afraid of jank as well, right? I mean, you look at, I know obviously FriendSwap is FriendSwap, but those games have Peak is so what? 11 million, 12 million copies, something crazy.
Yeah.
Many.
And they do it because really like $8 is $5.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just don't be afraid to build fast, build something quickly, iterate quickly, experiment, be a bit wild, be a bit zany. Think outside the box, try and defy convention a little bit, because convention's got us here, and here, as you said at the top of the show, isn't incredible, is it?
For me, it's really been, at least the talks I've been to, are humans make games. AI does not make games. Especially, I went to a wonderful session the other day. It was called the Digital Red Pen, and it was all about how games need human editors. Especially if you're working with words, you don't use, I'm not going to say too much about it, but that this is a human field. It's a human field that requires human creativity, human problem solving. That's what makes these things special.
Yeah.
Not just other types of tools.
Yeah, I have been paying attention to the messaging our peers on the team have been using about their phrase is bringing the whole B2B ecosystem together. And I have learned a lot in the last week that the phrase B2B is viewed very differently, because people will strictly see it as investors and like, what? No, we're a B2B site and we cover stuff like cake recipes sometimes. But it's just, but what that truly means is at the conference is a concerted effort by the our peers on the content team and folks in the crowd to go, hey, not just games are made by people, but like there are lots of people involved in getting a game from the start to out the door. And there's, when you call something Game Developers Conference, who is a developer? This has been the eternal question. Is a writer a developer? Is a community manager a developer? And both, and I think like in the spirit of the original GDC vision, which was just a bunch of game designers and, programmers and such coming together and trying to share secrets and such, games got bigger. The nature of games got bigger, and so the number of people who have things to share and communicate and like build together expanded. Now, to expand to that, there's been a very specific like vibe I felt that was especially seen at Austin Wintory's developers concert. I made the same mistake the other day.
These things happen.
The developers concert, which by the way, like
I would go to a conference that he led that was just like whatever. I would do that.
If he was conducting music according to the vibe of everything everybody said, that would be pretty cool.
Which is actually like I want to really like shout out what he does at that concert too, because it's actually like something I didn't fully appreciate, having had to miss the last few ones he did because they were during lunchtime and this one was after hours, so it was easier to make time for. His thing is not just like a concert; it's almost like a fireside chat with like the quick guests he brings on, and that's how that led to this moment that I was talking about, where you had Troy Baker and Jennifer English sort of like making a very eloquent case for how in this medium actors are sort of brought in so late and in such small amounts of time, when when they're whole part of the performance. You get games like Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the Last of Us series, and that's a tough line to ride. Like that's a tough line to ride, right? The games I work on the side, when most of the voice acting is just barks and simple lines, it can be difficult for an indie to make a case, or for a small team to make that case for that. But even then, I think actors are down to play ball. Performers are down to play ball. It's about the new narrative and performance track is about storytelling as this thing done by performers and people, like you said. But then when I had Alexa Correa in here yesterday in an episode that'll be going up after this, I was bringing up that, if you go study what performers do in other mediums, bringing them in early shapes the art direction, shapes the some of the creative choices happening elsewhere. It can reshape a whole script. Sometimes when as someone who covers the industry, I almost have like a specific carefulness about talking about writing and story, because like so many things that define the industry are not writing and story. Someone solving like really complicated engine problems does not I mean, I hope they would take inspiration from, like insights from a game writer, but I'll be, look, I get it. Like, I don't get much out of, I've written up very complicated technical talks and nothing about them is stuck in my head. So both taking inspiration from everywhere and trying to make sure everything's relevant as possible. Anyway, that's why like that vibe, that like compulsion to like bring performers in, that is what's at the heart of the quote unquote bring the B2B ecosystem in. I was talking to Dr. Rachel Cowart before this, and she's giving a talk on preventing toxicity in games, and she was making a case, for like the same thing applies for community teams. That is a part of the vibe. The thing that, I think our peers set out to message with that is certainly for these soft skill things that I have been talking to people about, along with, the money stuff. It's felt like they're accomplishing it, though. That said, I'll disclaimer, I have no idea how it's going on the money stuff end of it, because I went to a certain company's offsite area and, they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to do we're around GDC, but maybe we're at GDC. Who knows? Like, I think they are too. So I don't want to completely throw them under the bus, but like, is it going for them? I hope it's going well for them. I haven't talked to them as much.
What you were saying a second ago, that kind of like, it's a more holistic approach to game development, where there's we've heard it like when we interview like community managers or marketing, and it's like, well, when do you start your marketing in your cycle? It's like you should start it the second you start pitching your game. The second you have an idea, you need to be thinking about your marketing plans.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of extending the conference to meet like the audience or meet the developers where they already were. In a lot of ways. I had someone on the common stage again yesterday, day before time is made up, who I've paraphrased this several times, but saying that like GDC already felt like a festival to them. So seeing the kind of like the content, the program start to match where like the developers are and the community has been fantastic.
Yeah. Excuse me. Let's skedaddle beyond topics. When you guys, we've only had so much time on the show floor. We've only had so much opportunities to look at what quote unquote new games, what new frontiers might be being explored in the show this year. I think GDC is a really fascinating, when you're trying to like study the quote unquote vector or momentum of the game industry when it comes to like what games and products are out there. GDC is a strange place because you document what went well last year, and on the floor, as the Clear Obscure devs raised last night, people are pitching the next generation of games. They were saying like 4 years ago they came to GDC and like did the pitch that like helped them get funding to make this amazing game. And it's like, but I don't know that, but you don't know that. But that said, like anything on the game show on the floor, vibes wise, games wise, that you're like, oh man, that's so cool. Like that needs to be paid attention to after the show's over.
I think just alt control GDC always reels me in.
Yes.
It's such a wild little corner of the show.
Yeah.
You've got human beings being punted into Zorbs so they can roll around like hamsters.
Explain the concept of alt control GDC for people who might not know, because what you said sounds absolutely wild.
About context.
Alyssa, are you the host of the show now?
I'm just doing what we listen. 3 out of the 4 of us in here have hosted this podcast at one point, so it is kind of like battle of the hosts a little bit.
So it's video games that need to be controlled using weird, wonderful, wacky, experimental, non-traditional controllers. As I just mentioned, in this instance, one example of a non-traditional controller is a giant Zorb, which doubles as a hamster ball. I played one game where you had to extract gems from a Venus flytrap. It's like a multiplayer game. I won that game. Got a little sticker as a reward.
They have like a cute little Venus flytrap in front of you, and you have to like actually like pull them out of there.
The controller
so
is the
like
flytrap.
Tweezers. It's a bit like Operation. Do you remember that game? Where you like if you touch the sides, it's like. So you got to like pull these little gems out of the Venus flytrap, and if you touch one of the dangly little probes, it'll essentially bite your hands off. And I saw another game called Pivot, which was just 2 people holding a giant couch, attempting to pivot their way through a level. I assume named after the iconic Friends episode where Ross tells Joey or Chandler to pivot. I think that's just always incredible. Like there's so much ingenuity over there. So if you just want to wander around, don't even need to play the game, just like go over and check it out. It's incredible.
Yeah, can I plus one to that? I want to talk about dumpster dining, which I had so much fun. I was like an actual tiny trash panda, tiny trash raccoon myself in there. So what that is a game where you are playing as, in fact, a trash panda, a raccoon, and you actually are going through a physical garbage bin full of trash. It's really just like paper, but also items that sort of look like food items. And you have to scan codes, like barcodes, to actually go and feed your raccoon friends on the screen. I have to say, the game feel on this one was one of the greatest things ever, because these are actually sort of plushy objects that you're holding, and there's like a beep, a sensation when you're actually, putting up your barcode. The devs told me they were originally working with QR codes with this, but that actually sort of created a disconnect. It took a little too long, so they're like, barcodes, let's try this, which I thought was so fun. I was like sweating. I was digging through. I was making this sort of, nobody can see this. This is a podcast. This is a great audio. Oh my God, there's a video. All right, here we go, video camera. I was going through like this, actually like going through. I embodied a little raccoon while I was playing this. I thought it was the greatest thing I've played, even at all controlled GDC in a while. It was very fun.
It's difficult because your question was kind of about like what the next big thing is and like what's on the show floor that's going.
Next big thing.
All control. Well, no,
doesn't
all
have to be
control.
big. A trend forward.
Yeah, but like something that you want to see get like the money and become a big thing. And I wish there was a way for alt control GDC to be in everybody's home and to get out there into the world if they were still in the arcade era or something. Because there's so many like cool controllers and things that like it's such an experience you can only have at GDC for better or worse. Because I want other people to experience these weird games. I want somebody else to have to floss the giant cardboard teeth of a monster, and you have to like brush them, and it's weird and fun.
Some of them, there's been one, I've been helping judge all control GDC for a couple years, and one, I'll just say, like, the judging process is often like you're opening a video, and like if in 3 seconds you're smiling, then that thing is high up for consideration. For two, there's been a couple where I'm like, they're on the smaller side, and I'm like, man, if you could like figure out the like retail logistics on this, like it feels like it could be a product. Like, they were good enough and interesting enough.
Even on just sort of the design side, a lot of those teams are very, very, very small indies, and they're doing this as sort of a passion project, and a lot are students. And as a teacher, I teach game design. I actually go around and I take pictures and I show my students some of these things, just honestly for fun. Maybe this could be a way for them to make other types of games, and maybe not, but I think it's so joyous and so fun to have these really wild little experiments, and for there to be this place and this huge show to actually highlight that, showcase that, and be such a feel-good kind of place.
Yeah. What I, as I asked my own question and realized I was asking you guys to do something really hard, which is to say, like, what game out here do you think, like, we'll see more of outside the show? I was like, well, that's really hard. Luckily, the Independent Games Festival Awards are right there, and also they have their booth and such. The IGF's a little quirky, not just because of the types of games there, but also because devs can submit before their game is released. So AP Thompson's Titanium Court was obviously on the lips of every IGF juror. And that game is a like matching game kind of, with strange like stories that unfold, and like it's also strategic. And so that game is going to, like, I truly think, like, sometimes IGF games can be like a little niche after the show ends and they hit the market. Jenny Jiao Shaw has been making the most of this by posting a TikTok every day until she sells us a million copies of Consume Me. But two, I think Titanium Court not only will have legs, but it's one of those like, hey, sometimes go back and dig into a game mechanic or a genre that was like a little, shall we say, shallow. I don't mean to be so mean to match games and match 3 games. Obviously, Asher Volmer and Threes, rocked the mobile market when I was in college, which feels crazy to say. That was like over 12 years ago.
Don't think about it too much.
Sorry, I graduated college 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Thank God Danielle's in the room.
Yeah. Yes. I'm here. Everybody's young in this room. It's great.
Yeah. So the takeaway being, one, we could see like other, because, there tends to be a habit, for better and for worse, like, Balatro comes out and suddenly there's more, like gambling inspired, like games without gambling mechanics, which has been really cool.
To what you were just saying, like Balatro did the thing and took something simple and made it a deeper mechanic too. And there's been, sorry, I was just like pointing out the continuity there.
Even that,
yeah. So AP Thompson is already like, and that guy looks like so humble, and so like, I didn't mean to win this award 2 years in a row. Sorry, guys. I just happened to release my game after working on and being part of the Consume Me team. Who, when I was at DICE, Jenny was just like giving constant shout outs to AP for being like the reason that game shipped and actually became the game it is that is delighting players. So not only is there are a lot of some of the IGF nominees that were now, yet those student games were wild.
Absolutely.
Yeah, any of those student games that hit Steam, I was like, this is nuts. Like like seeing what and I almost feel like these students are the best, whatever. But I think it also like shows that like a good academic environment can reward and be the nurturing ground for this, which is also what academia is supposed to be. It's supposed to be like, hey, you can research things, you can not worry about profits, you're supposed to be able to make these things. And then this is a challenge the industry, I think, is not handling well, which is right now the industry is treating it as like this is what juniors were supposed to be. You know, like it's saying, oh, this is the place where you're going to learn Game Maker or Unity or Unreal, and this is going to be the training you need for whatever. But then they turn around and go like, oh, they turn around and go, oh, well, like, no, and now we're not hiring juniors anymore, and everything you learn in school doesn't apply in the real world. And I'm like, all right, guys, come on. Well, like, yeah, like academia, not just as like job training, but as space for research and experimentation and that sort of thing. It's obviously tricky because sometimes, you know, you can only work with the clay you got. Danielle, you're the one who's got to work with the clay, and students are either like, you know, there or otherwise they're just taking it for an optional course credit. So like, you know, no one's got, it's not supposed to be, you know, the most smooth and efficiently running thing, but you know, hey, pay attention to the student games, pay attention to Titanium Court. I can't wait to play that game. So, you know,
same. I've been thinking about that all week, especially because the picture of it keeps popping up on our site.
Oh my God.
So I just keep, also I'm a pixel art person, so I'm just in awe of how beautiful that game is, honestly. But yeah, I at the IGFs the other night, I was just like, I need to play this, I need to play this, I need to play this, which is what I'm doing all year anyway.
Yeah.
But I was doing it even more. Like force multiplier times 10, need to play, need to actually experience this.
Yeah, I can take all week off. I'm just repeating a joke from Blue Sky.
No, yeah, you're just reading a post on that.
Yeah, I'm just reading a post. I'm going to open my phone and open Blue Sky. Here are my best posts from GDC, guys.
Excellent.
I just want to take all week off and play them, truly.
Real quick, I want to touch on what you were saying about students a bit, because I think one of the easiest ways to learn something is to fail at something. And it's great if you can just go out there and fail all the time, no consequences, but you don't really get those opportunities very often. And when you're in the education sphere, you have the opportunity to make a mistake and have it be horrific and catastrophic, and then walk away learning something fantastic from it. And I think that's so important to have.
And I'll say this, although it's not, there is a lower risk of having gone to film school and watched like failure occur in different ways. There is less risk of physical harm in making games at school than there is in making movies. And I say this as someone who made his thesis film a 20-minute fantasy mini epic in the freezing cold of upstate New York with prop swords being swung around. And it's when I say it's a miracle no one got hurt, that almost makes it sound like we were reckless. But like in our case, it was, you know, safety, safety, safety. But if you're at school, if you're listening to this, if you're one of Danielle's students, it's do not crunch. I know you have the energy to crunch. Go party instead.
Responsibly.
Go party instead.
Irresponsibly.
Yeah, my students are wonderful. If I can talk for 2 seconds about my students, I would honestly love to, because I feel so inspired, especially seeing the student games, especially seeing the alt control games. I talked to my students yesterday, and I just showed them slides of talks I had went to. I was just like, look at this. This is awesome. And take this idea and take that. And they were so into it and they were so excited about it. And honestly, that energy is life-giving, especially we've talked a bit about the chaos in the industry and about just things not being great in a lot of spheres, and that has been truly energizing for me this week, so.
We're getting a little like inside baseball here, but I was having a few conversations with people. There's kind of a very frustrating dynamic that I'm going to do my best to put it in words and not like I'm trying not to make anyone feel bad with this, but there's been a tension when it comes to what is a conference about making video games supposed to be and who is supposed to be for. That for many years, like attention was growing, or because of the shifting dynamics of, you know, like what you can access online, like what you need out of a conference, you know, the ratio of like students to full-time professionals at GDC. I had some people going, and I think this was like a little disrespectful, was people would be going like, oh, I came here because I needed to like sign deals and whatever. And I just kept like running into students, and I'm like, but you gotta like treat the students well. They're literally going to either be working for you or your boss in a few years, or your collaborator, you know, like
Absolutely. And they have energy and they have enthusiasm, and it can be beautiful to have that in the room, even if they
aren't jaded yet.
It's such a
I still have
precious
hope.
resource.
I'm not jaded. I just have leatherized skin. No. But like here's the valid thing, right? Is like when you go anywhere, like especially even though 5 days is a lot of time, you only have so much time, and something, you know, in the spirit of like game development is about like listening for the sensation behind the feedback, the negative thing, and trying to find the thing you extrapolate from it. So not just, you know, like scolding people who think that way. Let's treat this as a little scolding. But the second one being, like trying to find your community. Some of the things that have been being addressed this year. This year, it's so crazy to watch how this is almost like studying the quote unquote festivalization of GDC is almost like kind of worth studying for like design or organizational reasons of like what happens when you like kind of rip out the guts of something, like hit the fundamentals, and then what happens when you stuff it all back in, close the machine, and then it turns out things look pretty similar, the vibes can feel pretty similar, but suddenly like I've heard so much more enthusiasm for the presence of students here. And I think it's just because like through a combination of things. There's one clear example right behind us in the podcast booth right now. Someone was saying somewhere, I forget who on our team, that like it used to be you're at GDC, the hallway right behind us, which connects north and south halls, people need to sit and rest and recharge their phones, and they were down there lining the wall of that hall. This year, there's just a few like diehards back there, committed to the old ways, and I salute them. But everyone else is like to our left is in a space called the GDC Commons. In front, we have the podcast booth here where folks can listen here. Shout out to the crowd out there. You guys are great. And to our left is your baby, Alyssa. You're in Beth Elderkin's baby, the common
GDC
stage.
Common stage.
Yeah, there's a study in like GDC's become such a level design experience in so many ways here about like how altering these core structures can make things feel more welcome, more present, and more vibrant. And where like connecting with students is now like viewed as like you're connecting with your community as opposed to interfering with your goal here. That said, I cannot stress this enough. You're at GDC and a student comes up and starts chatting, and as long as they're being polite, you as a professional are obligated to do everything possible to make their day feel as good as possible. But you aren't obligated to be their like career mentor or whatever. But like I've seen some people being like, I don't have time for this, and I'm like,
polite. For the love of God, just be polite.
It is as the Elden Ring players like to say, it is maidenless behavior.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which that term can go in a bad way, so I don't want to go that way. But it's just Elden Ring. It's Elden Ring. It's unworthy, it's dishonorable.
Yes.
We've been talking about, the industry trying to figure out how to survive and thrive. I have been like scurrying between conversations where even people who are not business people are trying to wrap their heads around the business problems of the industry. And certainly you could argue that an industry that silos itself so much into different roles means that everyone who grabs onto the business role will have the most power and the influence. And, look where that got us, all layoffs and studio closures later. And on the other hand, look, if you're, I'm a writer, I get scared every time I have to think about numbers and money. So the having to do that for this job, thanks my bosses, has been hard. And also, apologies.
Instructive?
Fun.
It's fun for you. Maybe you get to write up all those financial reports.
Educational?
I love that. I love that stuff.
No, yeah, but I've actually
But it's pretty good.
I've been talking to people about how they're trying to wrap their heads around it too, even if it's not their main role. And everyone is really trying to solve. Like I think way down at the heart of the structural things, sort of like co-dev, co-funding, some of these techniques to like get game projects off the ground without building something toppy that can fall over if a funding goal isn't met, or if a game doesn't sell great and the money's not flowing in the right way. This was something that a couple weeks back on the podcast I was talking to Tim Bender about, is like the problem a lot of people want to solve is like, what is the cheapest and most effective way to access capital? And look, we're talking about capital. We're stuck in capitalism. It is a system that produces many poor outcomes, but hey, we're stuck in it. We need, even the socialist countries have stock markets. So like, but like Tim made a good point, which is like a game publisher is often not the best way to raise money, but we're so used to the publisher funds the game and greenlights the game that we're often on that path. And meanwhile, like folks like Midwest Games are out there, like sort of working with like investment funds and banks that are normally not in the game space and sort of helping them learn why games are a good investment. And let me tell you, if whatever business person you're listening to this, games are a great investment, even though it's risky. That's my opinion. This is not financial advice. But no, yeah, it's been interesting watching people who do not think about these problems being forced to think about these problems because of the current state of the industry.
Yeah. I think we need to just like redefine the parameters of success though. I think, every time I mention covering like financials, and whenever layoffs are announced, obviously they're always discussing the earnings calls and stuff like that. And you hear the word sustainability, sustainable growth in particular, that phrase. Exactly. Because it's such a paradox.
I'm going to try something here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've got
Press
a
three buttons.
Come on, Brian. Press the right one. We can't hear it.
Bleh.
No,
I'll just make
keep
these
going.
noises.
Keep going.
Okay.
Too much pressure.
Too much pressure for Brian. But yeah, so you look at Highguard, for instance, coming into GDC, being shut down, and talking about financing. The issue with the games industry to some extent seems to be one of its own making in terms of
Extremely so.
there were reports that the financing handed out by Tencent to the studio band Highguard was given to them on the basis that they would hit certain milestones, and then it was pulled because they didn't get retained enough players, even though they attracted.
We're gonna put an allegedly in here just because
It's a report.
Reportedly.
Yeah.
Not confirmed, but reported. And again, if true, that would be seemingly in my opinion, a suicidal deal to take.
Just pointing a gun at your own foot.
Yeah, exactly. And when you've got people in positions of power or people running studios, making games that are seemingly taking certain deals or certain financing structures being offered that are essentially priming studios for failure unless you somehow manage to find the golden goose and hit a home run that soars into the sky. That just isn't even remotely sustainable or achievable, is it? And you need to, again, I go back to Peak, again, that game sold millions of copies, but it didn't need to sell millions of copies. It did great, fantastic, whatever. But again, it was made in 4.5 months. The team literally went to Korea for 28 days. They went to IKEA. I saw a picture of it during the talk, and just decked out a small studio apartment in Korea with IKEA furniture. They said they went there in the middle of winter because that way there would be no incentive to leave the apartment because apparently they did. So it was just Korean hot pot, IKEA furniture, laptops, and that's it, right? And again, I'm not saying that would work for everyone, but again, it means the bar for success doesn't need to be as high. You've got to give yourself a chance to make something, right? Again, Highguard, it was shut down after how many weeks?
Less than a month and a half, essentially.
And it had millions of players.
So
it's wild to me looking at that it
had millions of players at launch, but they had protection problems.
I mean, every game has fall off.
Obviously, again, we don't know how much the drop was, but to go from 2 million,
we actually sort of do because you can just look at Steam DB, well, whatever. That's
but to go from 2 million players confirmed to shut down in the blink of an eye is a mind-boggling predicament to be in. Maybe if the game had lasted for another 6 months, maybe it still would have happened. But at least then people are in work for another 6 months. At least you have the runway to try.
Right.
All you can do is try. It doesn't mean you'll always succeed. But devs aren't even being afforded that opportunity at the minute.
Well, they had the plans for it too on that. Like they had entire roadmaps for the content that was going to be coming out for the game. They had the assets made already.
It wasn't a production problem. It was a capitalism problem. I'll say it. I'll just say it.
I have some mild we this is not the Highguard debate podcast, but GDC is about being a little clear-eyed, and one could study their story and observe that there were production practices or marketing practices that might have put the game in front of people sooner and gotten feedback sooner. But I do not like dwelling on that when clearly there was a business structural problem looming overhead. All right, Chris, I need you to say sustainable growth one more time.
Sustainable growth.
There we go.
Perfect.
Master of the soundboard.
Yeah. Just before we move on though, on that topic as well of risk, I was at the Outer Sloth talk, and obviously they're not a publisher. They finance indies, but they were really calling on publishers to take on a little bit more of the risk. And I think they made a really good point, which was for devs, when you're pitching to a publisher, this is your one shot essentially. If it's your first game, if you get one game. If it doesn't necessarily land, you might not get another chance, whereas publishers can dilute risk across their entire portfolio. So that's why they were trying to gently encourage publishers just to take on a little bit more of that risk, to give devs a bit more runway, right? Okay, maybe that first game, it's not a massive hit, but maybe it does okay. And because, they've got a bigger slice of the pie, they can then go again, as opposed to just leaving the industry entirely or shutting down or whatever it is.
Tim Bender, once again, just to plug our own podcast, Tim Bender a couple weeks ago, exact same point of publishers are better positioned to handle risk. They are not the one essentially doing a heavy R&D project. The terms of the contract, if the terms of your contract, he was very harsh on recoup terms as opposed to rev share terms. He's like, if you steal the IP rights, if you rely on recoup for your business, then you are putting the risk on the wrong party, and no one's benefiting from that, and you are just trying to squeeze blood from a stone, especially when a game is not the top thing, and it incentivizes you to only focus on the best things in your catalog. Deep breath, because we have spent so long talking about business, guys, but we are all design nerds in here too. We love fun games. Danielle,
Yes.
you've been to some cool talks about making games fun.
Yes,
Please
I
tell
have.
me about them.
I want to tell you about two specifically.
Hit me.
Briefly. I just want to talk about it was designing POIs in the Outer Worlds 2 talk.
Yeah.
Just
Very fun
the
game.
most delicious level design talk I've been to in a very long time. Just really, we start with the game design documentation. We really look at what's important out of there. And here are the things that I use. It was Don Shao, I believe was the name of the designer who did this talk. Talks about pulling out these little points, these little kind of bits and pieces, either of story or something about a character or something about, okay, this is something that, this is like a special weapon or a special thing in the game, and designing around one of those things. Actually kind of a, person, place, thing sort of approach to it. And then showed all these amazing examples, showed how they sort of designed this cave where this ridiculous crab monster was going to come out and sort of different passes on that. Just, oh my God,
I fought that crab monster.
Stuff. Oh, perfect. I haven't played the game yet, which of course is going to be the thing I say about everything, but I was so inspired by this talk.
Yeah.
Again, I showed my students a bunch of slides from it. I was like, look at this, guys. Look at, oh my God, game design documents. Because we use a lot of game design documents in our class because we only have 12 weeks. And I have mostly musicians and sound designers. So I teach at Berkeley, which is a music college. So it's mostly like we're doing documentation and then we'll do any other little things that we can kind of do. So it was, oh my God, delicious. It was that good stuff. I'm making the chef's kiss.
You had a second talk?
Yes, the second one, I really, really loved Adam Saltzman's Corgi Space talk, which was really about his sort of Corgi Space manifesto of making small games with short legs. And it was amazing. It's sort of something that I do personally, that I love, that I enjoy, making tiny little games just as a creative practice, and just how healing that can be. And also sort of getting away from certain, misconceptions and certain, using formulas for everything and just being like, what's easier? What actually is better to do with this as a creative practice?
What can I do with like GB Studio or Game Maker?
Pico 8. He uses Pico 8 specifically Pico 8, as an example, but any of the smaller engines, any of the sort of the things that people use, it was again, chef's kiss.
Yeah, especially when like sometimes the logic you're given is like you need to be doing the small things and tools for your portfolio as opposed to doing them for yourself. That's good. Alyssa, did you make it to any talks besides that Google talk? Nope.
I've been here at the podcast. No, not at the podcast, like a GDC Common stage.
Yep. Hey, audio listeners, if you're hearing some beeping, that's just our poor little GoPro going, I'm sorry, guys, I'm just a little guy and crashing.
Short legs?
Not crashing.
He's got such short legs. Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, God, no, yeah. I was just in Seth Rosen's
my birthday twin.
Talking about the design of Pacific Drive. No mention of birthday twins, Danielle. So the statistical improbability that you would share a birthday.
If he's listening.
He clearly couldn't fit it in there because
I don't know why he didn't. It's so relevant.
That talk was so dense. Everything in there was like, they are going to be teaching that in game design classes. And I said as much to him because he just like broke down some of the most complex ways that you can like actually analyze design of a game as like unique as Pacific Drive. A game where you hop in a car with parts that break down, you have to repair and maintain, and you make runs out into like a stalker inspired zone, referring to the book and film by Tarkovsky. Thank you. Really fun movie, by the way. Like strangely, like I don't know, it's up there on a pedestal as like a Soviet cinema thing, and I'm watching it with Carly, my spouse, and going like, this movie's like really funny. Like
it really is.
And it's part of the inspiration for Battle Royale, for Stalker the game, for these other games. Anyway, but no, it's like there's a whole vibe there not tapped into. Anyway, this was the chunkiest and thickest design talk. He was like skipping over slides because he's like, I'm running out of time. But like just staring at just like seeing those slides snap by for a second. It's almost like he took the thing that was in the script and put it on the slide itself. And I was almost like, man, everyone else out here would like just leave that in the script and put like images up there. But he was so committed to making sure that like, no matter what kind of learner you are, I could pick it up. So when that hits the vault, I really hope it'll be a great thing for educators to get their hands on, for designers at home to get their hands on. Like I couldn't even break it down aside from like one of the like most interesting things was that he's sort of like, he's always been like, he's been on the tear for a couple years now about how he's not a fan of like survival games, air quotes, but like making a quote unquote survival game by like ripping out the parts of other other game genres ranging from immersive sim to adventure games to obviously survival games, but like also battle royale, to make something that like isn't like anything else on the market. And there's kind of like we sort of when we sort of talk about games that really like stand out and like find an audience, like people are always looking for something fresh and new. When we're talking about like, oh, growth in games is stagnating or whatever, or like some of these other what I call the business cynic ideas, like, and like, oh, we can't tap into these markets. There's only so many people playing these games. All the kids are playing Roblox. And like, if you want to just kick that out of your head, you start by trying to like crack that nugget of like, what do people want that they don't know what they want yet? And his very intense breakdown of these design concepts, and obviously when you talk about Pacific Drive, and he was clear about this at the end, you know, this is a thing made by many people, by a staff that maxed out at 35 people plus contractors. So he was essentially like documenting like all their work. You know, the studio heads work, who her name is something I'm blanking on right now, I'm so sorry, to the folks at Ironwood. Yeah, you're great. You know, I've spoken with her a bunch, and her vision for, you know, this Pacific Northwest adventure you know, fits through. Like Seth was like, yeah, like that vibe is deep into the game's design, and like that is, yeah. So wherever it is, like wherever it makes its way out of here after this, that thing is, I was like, oh wow. And the room was packed.
Yeah.
Obviously the dynamics of like talk audiences at the show this year, you know, everyone can get in every talk. So, you know, compared to past years, like it's not, the comparisons are not super worth doing, because you're just going to like run out of, you know, it's apples and oranges. But seeing this game came out, you know, a couple years ago, the talk was supposed to be given last year, but Seth had to delay it for a year because of a medical emergency.
Yeah.
And he came back and gave it, and like the room was full, raucous, excited, happy, like, and it's like, yeah, that's like, man, that's what like this whole dang show, even compared, not even compared to other game events, but other like professional, like how people share knowledge and disciplines. Like games got it, man. Games got something that nothing got on games. Film doesn't do this.
Yeah.
The arts do, but they also have like centuries of crafts, you know, to waste to do this. So our community's catching up. But yeah, like games got it good for sharing this kind of thing.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna say, speaking of design talks, I literally just came out of the Baby Steps talk.
Yeah.
It's about how they built that world.
Did you take baby steps on the way back here?
Oh.
I didn't, because I was rushing to this move, so I took very big steps.
Yeah.
Adult steps, you might
Yeah.
say.
Thank you for rushing, by the way.
Yes, yeah, no worries. But that talk was a fascinating exercise in just showing how and why you probably should torment your players a little bit. I posted it on Blue Sky, but there's a slide where they said in the opening area, which obviously serves as sort of the tutorial for the game, where if you haven't played it, you need to manually control both of your legs using the triggers, and it's horrible but incredibly satisfying when you get the hang of it.
Yeah.
You never truly get the hang of it, hence why you keep falling flat on your face. And yet they organized this opening area to create a very obvious golden path, which is just, look, it's a nice little bit of flat road, maybe a few little fences you hop over, and off you go. The adventure begins. But if you take that route, the easiest route in the game, you just start looping back around forever and ever and ever. And I was watching this talk, and I realized very quickly that, oh, I did that. So I was the idiot. I fell the hook, line, and sinker for that.
Correct.
Yes.
We're so good at video games, guys.
And they designed that intentionally to make sure that players would have to experiment with the mechanics. Right. That's obvious. It's easy. It's too easy. What about that cliff over there?
Yeah.
Can you climb that like a mountain goat? And they were saying that during playtesting, they had some friends play the game. And one of their pals ended up spending 16 hours trying to climb this one cliff edge whilst they were being followed by a little baby chick. And they did it in the end. And they were like, yeah, they designed this entire area over there off to the right, but then over here, this person just diligently tormented themselves for 16 hours. And it was a challenge that they'd set themselves, right? You know, they made their own game within the game. Yeah. And that's what I love about Baby Steps. There's a tower you can climb. Yeah. And they intentionally placed it, again, to torment players, they intentionally placed it at the start of the game, knowing you will not have accrued the necessary skills to actually climb this tower. And when you start approaching the tower, you're told there's nothing at the top of this tower. It's entirely pointless. Do not climb this tower. Yeah. And you get to the top after spending 16 hours doing it, and there is nothing there. Yeah. All right, guys. Friday is ticking down. I believe currently in 12:25 in San Francisco means that the East Coast is doing a big old stretch, and
looking at that clock and thinking about getting out for the
I'm
weekend.
thinking about being at the top of that tower too. I think, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Of the weekend, we're about to move back in.
Yeah. This is a question I actually ask a lot of our guests on the podcast, but now you, my colleagues who I share jokes with in Slack and jokey jokes and shitposts and stuff, I'm going to ask it for you so you get to experience it. Is starting with you, Alissa, is there anything you want to share from your time at GDC this week that I have not asked you about?
I can talk about when I cry.
Aww.
I say it every year, going to the awards. I will cry. I'm not a crier generally. Like, that's not who I am as a person, but I somehow am just like sitting there dabbing my face the entire time. It was the Lifetime Achievement Award and the Ambassador Award this year. We're both went to such like well-deserving people, and
Don Daglow and Rebecca Heineman, respectfully.
Yes, and like the presentation around it too. Like, I was sobbing. I did not think I was going to be crying at that part. It's usually like an acceptance speech that gets me, and it was tears. Like, I don't remember exactly what was said because I was just like, hope no one sees me crying. I'm
started
in the
off
front
by
row.
tearing up and thanking his wife, and then like the whole room was done.
Yeah.
And then Rebecca Heineman, it's a posthumous award, so her kids came up to accept it, and just like the celebration of like such a creative person's life, and like truly like one of those she could have gone, she was not undersung among her peers, and she did not seek the spotlight, but like making sure that, you know, like there was just a little rubber stamp on her name for Wikipedia or wherever else to make sure her moment in game history got recommended.
Yeah.
Danielle with the cool blue shades.
That's me with the cool blue shades. I just want to use the space to say thank you to my colleagues. It's been a tough couple of years, honestly.
Yeah.
And y'all have made this a really lovely show, and honestly lovely to kind of get through some of my fear of flying to be here and actually spend some time with y'all, look at some really amazing games with y'all, and feel inspired again. I've been in a rut, certainly. So being here, seeing some of the creative inspirations, seeing some of those things we saw at Alt GDC, seeing some of the things we've talked about in the talks has been, honestly, it has been life-giving. So
Chris,
that's what I
Real
gotta
quick,
say.
I'll just like back at you and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Like, it's having the entire team in one room is just, it's so fantastic,
It's
and I love the
pretty
community that we
One
have
room
together.
doing a podcast.
Yeah. All right, now I'll stop interrupting. I'm sorry.
No.
I say I want
Awesome.
to shout out the devs that they are the devs.
Oh my God,
There's
yeah.
a little section over there where you can play some of the cool games. Obviously, if you're hearing this, you maybe can't play them, but you can go online and see who was actually at the showcase. Some really cool games there. At the bigger event on Sunday, I played a game called Stretchmancer.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Portal style puzzler, but where you manipulate the room itself and the objects by stretching them.
Whoa.
And also a game which I didn't get to play, but I spoke to the devs. It's called Jank Footy or Jank Football, and it's Aussie rules football
love this
simulator that brings in wild cards like every round. And I think the best way to sell this game is just say there is a card you can play against your opponent that turns one of their players into a seagull.
Oh my God.
That sounds like a buff. Why would you buff your
Sold.
opponent like that?
I'm not familiar with
Even
Aussie rules
seagulls
football.
have been out to get you, so that's pretty threatening.
They're so aggressive.
Whether that's part of the actual rules, I don't know, but I'm guessing not. But yeah, that game looked really fun. So yeah, just all the indies that they devs.
We'll find out at the World Cup this year in Foxborough, Massachusetts.
A lot of seagulls.
A lot of seagulls, Massachusetts. All right, Alissa, Chris, Danielle, thank you so much for coming on the Game Developer Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for hosting.
That's a wrap on GDC, but remember, we'll have more interviews and stories from the show coming your way soon. For more from us at Game Developer, be sure to visit www.gamedeveloper.com, follow us on major social platforms, and subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find me on Blue Sky at bryantfrancis.me. Today's episode was edited by the wonderful Pierre Landreau, and our theme music is by the talented Mike Meehan. Thanks for listening. Speaking personally, this was the best GDC experience I've had since COVID-19 shut down the event in 2020. I know I'm biased. Again, there's the whole sibling organization thing. But this year's show really helped me connect with Chris Cawford and understand what was going on in his head when he kicked this whole thing off in the first place back in, so many years ago. If I'm lucky, I'll get to see that same energy at this show and other events for years to come. See you, everyone.